in that Leaders of Peace summit that's taking place there, and we have the former president of Zambia now, Jacquim Chisano, who is speaking. Let's take you there right now.
And maybe just building on what is good, you talked about the phenomenon of terrorism in Africa, Al-Shabaab in East Africa, and Boko Haram in Nigeria. So really the issue of security is becoming more critical in Africa. So what can be done so that we really see the fruits of peace in Africa, and for the Africans to be able to thrive, to see their economies, if they talk about a free trade agreement without any inhibitions, because they are rebels, destabilizing the trade in Africa. So what can all these 54 countries do to make sure that Africans see the fruits of peace?
I think that they have to make a thorough study while they are trying to attack the terrorists. They would want looking for the root causes and to know why is this happening and where it originates from and so on. So to be able to fight with efficiency. Because we may fight terrorists in one place, but it's not there, the source of their strength. It's elsewhere. So you have to strategize by knowing this, who the enemy is, and all the links. You have many types of organized crime, and sometimes these are all interlinked: drugs, human trafficking, the exploitation of resources in the country unlawfully, including ivory, precious stones, and so on and so on. But you may have many other motives. So one has to get to know all of this. Are not the same in all countries, but they can be related. I don't know. We have the states have to study this phenomenon.
And just, Mr. President, you have a country like the DRC that will be going to the elections, and one would imagine that they are doing so because they want to have permanent peace, and the outgoing president won't stand in. So what would be your advice to a country like DRC with such a huge potential, but because of the factions and the infightings, that has really sort of stifled the country's potential? So what would be your advice ahead of December?
Well, I think that they should they should stick to the good practices, dialogue among themselves, to bring more harmony in the country. And in some cases, they may need to get into a reconciliation process. It's not the first time they're having elections. They had elections. I have been there. I observed those elections, which were very well organized indeed. And after the elections, there were clashes. And there's a need of keeping the harmony on, reconciliation if necessary. Now this time, I think that they have got a good start. Although there were speculations that the president, the current president, wanted to stay forever. Yeah, I take that, but I'm not one of those who just jump to say that one president wants to stay forever. Because in my country, there were accusations of that kind, even vis-a-vis myself, who had decided by free will that I don't want to stand. I had to tell my party that I will not stand. But voices outside would say, he wants to stand. He's playing a bluff. And so I don't take always this for granted that President Kabila, for instance, wanted to stay forever. Maybe he was buying time for something, maybe to get a candidate or something like that. But he knew that by the constitution he would not be there. I think that now he's clarified the matter because he has presented a new candidate, which shows that he does not intend to stay. And to stay, he had to change the constitution. And I never heard the discussion about the change of constitution. But I think that conditions have to be created, so they have to prepare thoroughly. December is not far, but still they have room to discuss so that the elections run smoothly. I have been there, and I spoke with all the parties which existed then, all the leaders, all the civil society organizations, and so on, to get involved in creating an environment of peace for peaceful elections to take place.
All right. Maybe as a last question, Mr. President, you know, the issue around the dead tamers phenomenon in Africa, the dead tamers, the presidents who will stay for eternity in office, who are overstaying their welcome in office. Yeah. I mean, for you, because I mean, to some countries, we've seen conflicts because of such leaders where there's no clear succession plan, and then everything descends into disarray and chaos. So as somebody who has left the State House, where you're a former president, what can you say to some of those leaders? Because as much as the number is going down in Africa, but unfortunately we still do have those leaders who have stayed for a number of years. So what can you say to them to actually understand that there's life post-presidency?
What I would say to them, to everyone actually, is that they have to respect the law of their countries. If the law of their countries allows them to stay forever, then they stay forever. But if not, they have to follow what the law says. I cannot go to any monarchy and tell the king to step down, because that is a kingdom and the law says that he stays forever. But when the law says that they have to have elections every 5 years, they have elections, and who loses step down. If they say that they have are allowed to stand for elections 2 times, then they proceed like that until the rules are changed. What I have advised to some who asked me the same question, I said, if one wants to change the constitution, he must change it to be applied for the next person to be elected, but not for his own term. Let's say, if one is in power, should not legislate it so that that new rule applies to him. Should apply for other elections in which he is not going to participate. And then it becomes the rule of the country. 3 years, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, how many times you want, but according to the constitution. to the law.
All right.
Because you see, in Europe, many countries have got no limit of terms to stand for elections. But it's their constitutions saying so. And there's no problem. Even some countries would shout very, very loud when an African head of state, they think that one African head of state has overstayed, they shout. But in their country, there is no legislation to say that they have a limitation of terms. But they are following the law. The state of law is very important.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Unless you have some concluding remarks, especially because these are very tough times for the world. The rise of protectionism, unilateralism, especially when it comes to so many other issues. Or you're absolutely fine.
No, I don't have to speak about the world today. It's because the world is so big with all these the problems which are very complicated. What I know is that Africa has established its path, and it should be proceeded. I mean, all what is discussed in the African Union, the Agenda 2063, together with the United Nations Agenda 2030, must be followed in practice, and the search for stronger unity. It's something which we should not forget. We started there, and we are looking for unity. And the issue of integration did not start today, but today it is spoken with vigor. But we have to not only speak it out, but to practice it. The integration is very important if you want to develop quickly.
All right. Thank you so much, Sam. Muito obrigado. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My colleague Khayelihle Khumalo in conversation with the former Mozambican President Jacquim Chisano there.